Hello and greetings from UB. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement and the UB School of Management, we are delighted you are able to join us for today's webinar presentation. I know we took the summer off, however, we are excited to kick off the academic year with our very own set of webinars that will have you learning all year long. My name is Christy Fields, and I serve as the Director of Alumni Lifelong Engagement here at UB. And I'm also joined by my wonderful colleague, Joy Rona, who will assist in answering any questions. We are both so grateful you are with us today for this educational opportunity. Since 1923, the UB School of Management has been developing leaders and making an impact on individuals, businesses, and communities around the world. In their mission to define the future of management, Dean Iyer has unified the school around 4 distinct areas of focus: business analytics, social impact of management, business of climate change, innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Each of these initiatives are helping to realize their vision of a world of transformational leaders and organizations who change society for the better. With that said, we are excited to welcome today's featured presenters, UB alumna Dr. Dorothy Siaw-Asamoah and UB adjunct instructor and president of Polaris Leadership Consulting, Dr. Marsha King. Dorothy is a clinical professor of organization and human resources in the UB School of Management. As the inaugural faculty director of global programs since 2018, Dorothy designs and implements high-impact programs that develop students' global and diversity mindset while preparing them for an increasingly intercultural workforce. Additionally, she is the director of the UB School of Management Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness, otherwise known as CLOE, where she develops leaders through a wide array of programs. Marsha is the president of Polaris Leadership Consulting, where she provides coaching and development to senior leaders and their organizations. She also facilitates training and team building and is a popular speaker on topics related to developing leaders and enhancing cultures. In addition, Marsha is an adjunct instructor in the UB School of Management and is co-founder and lead facilitator of CLOE's Leadership Coaching Certification. Today's webinar, Dorothy and Marsha will lead a discussion on purpose and meaning in leadership. They will walk you through an exercise about identifying your purpose and meaning in your respective field. By the end of the session, you will have the framework to coach yourself and others for maximum outcomes. We will leave some time during today's webinar for Q&A. If you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and submit them. You have that Zoom question, that Q&A on your taskbar. Submit those questions to us at any time. Dorothy and Marsha have also shared a resource for you. So there's a document in the resource section. So make sure you go ahead and download that before the conclusion of today's presentation. And in addition, we are recording today's session and we'll send you all a copy within the next 24 hours. And now it is my pleasure to turn it over to our featured presenters, proud members of our UB family and colleagues of mine, and who I can also call friends, Dr. Dorothy Siaw-Asamoah and Dr. Marsha King. Welcome, Dorothy and Marsha.
Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here.
Thank you.
So, and I have to say, it's such an honor to not just to be here to present to this group, but also to have an opportunity to complete this workshop with Dorothy, a dear friend, one of the smartest people I know, and constantly helping me to become better. I love that. So Dorothy, thank you so much. I'm actually going to ask the first question and for you to answer. So you lead CLOE, you do many things. One of the things you do is you lead CLOE. I thought it would be a good kickoff for you to give a description of what exactly is CLOE.
Thank you, Marsha. And I have to say, it is a gift for me to be able to do this with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So coming back to your question, thank you that you asked. CLOE is a short form of Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. CLOE is an internationally recognized center for its thought leadership in innovation and organizational leadership. CLOE uses its world-class, globally minded research faculty and practitioners to produce innovative research based on its academic and organizational partners. All its sessions, workshops, various forms will be shared with you at the end of this session, but I wanted to make sure that we have a moment to be able to share with you what CLOE stands for, what CLOE does, and what CLOE is comprised of. So thank you for asking that question.
Yes, and I am so blessed to be part of CLOE. So you have a question for me.
I have a question for you, and the question is, to have purpose and meaning in your work, isn't that something people need to do for themselves? How do you give someone purpose, Marsha? Help me understand that.
I love that question. And you know, this is a topic that makes my heart sing. So, do you give yourself purpose? Absolutely, without question. But you can also give other people purpose and meaning. And so, our hope is that if you are managing people, leading people, that this will speak to your heart. And if you are managed by someone or led by someone, this will also speak to your heart, because you can help yourself have purpose and meaning. But again, this is really about, if you're managing a team, how do you give them purpose and meaning? So if you go to a bookstore and you go to the section about finding purpose and meaning, you're going to have a million titles. So I pulled together what I feel is a good definition. It's not the definition, but it's a good definition. It's one that we're going to be working from today. So take a moment. I used to say take a moment and see what words pop out at you, but I've put the words that should pop out to you in red. So that's pretty easy. But I see this in distinct parts. So first of all, being inspired to achieve work goals is what we're really trying to get here. And to do that, you need to feel aligned with the work and the organization. I don't know if anyone has ever worked for an organization where they did not feel aligned with the organization. That creates tension. So this is about alignment to the work and the organization. It's also about being connected to people, the people that you work with, the people that you serve, the people that you report to. It's about creating that connection. And then also feeling valued by your leaders for your unique talents. So I think everybody understands what it means to feel valued by your leaders. My hope is that you do feel valued by your leaders. But unique talents is a very important two words on this page. It's very easy for a leader to say, I value all of you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your work and contributions. And that's good. But when the leader gets to know you, and the leader knows exactly what it is that you are offering, what talent you have that is making a difference, that's when that's the sweet spot, is when you feel valued for what you have to offer. All right. So again, this is something that you're not going to find this in a book. You'll probably find this in multiple books, but I've been coaching a very, very long time. And I think that there are 4 elements for creating purpose-driven work. Number 1, again, and I kind of said this within the definition of what does it mean to have purpose and value in your work, purpose and meaning in your work. So number 1, if you want to have purpose-driven work, you need to know that your work matters. If you are a leader, everyone on your team should know how, why, when their work matters. And it's mostly just, is it connected to the purpose, the mission, the goals of the organization? Now, my guess is that many of you who lead people or who are being led are able to make that connection. But let's not take that for granted. It's really important to help people to understand that their work matters because it's connected to the purpose, the mission, and the goals of the organization. The second one is that people need to feel that their work is important, that it makes a contribution, that it makes a difference, that if it weren't for the work, the organization may not be meeting its goals. The work they do is really important. Third, people need to feel included. They are recognized and valued for their unique contributions, but also that they are sought after. They are included in discussions. They are asked to be involved. A lot of times, actually not a lot of times, many times with some of the leaders that I coach, I will ask them, most organizations or most groups have a team but then they have a team within a team. And the team within a team is basically their go-to people. And so you may be on a team where you are not one of the go-to people, or that you are one of the go-to people. And when I say this to leaders, they immediately, almost always say, I include everybody. But if you have go-to people, you've basically created a team within a team. So people need to feel like they are included. There's this a lot of work in DEI on this, and that you've probably heard this phrase, but it fits very well here. Is don't ask people to the party if you're not going to ask them to dance. It is so true. It's true in DE&I, and it's true when you're managing a team of people. All right, and then that their values are aligned with their leaders or organizations. And the work. So this creates authenticity. You're able to operate and to work authentically in your organization. This can be difficult. So I'm going to give you a very quick example. I'm not going to use any names, but I was employed by an organization that I was not aligned with their goals. And I worked there a long time. And so people ask me, how could you work in an organization that operates against your goals? Because one, I love the company. I loved how they treated people. I loved how they allowed us to figure out ways to align our values. The leadership was great. The organization was great. So I was able to find ways to feel like my values were aligned with the organization. My job definitely was aligned with my values. The people that I served, I was able to create alignment. The overall goal in the organization, not so much. But there was enough there that I felt connected. I felt very valued, and I felt like my values were aligned. All right. I get this question all the time. So you're talking about purpose and meaning. How is that different than motivation? It's very different than motivation. There's nothing wrong with motivating people. We should be trying to motivate people, but motivation really is something that does truly come from within. And so we attempt to do it by using basically a carrot and stick approach. If you do this, you will get this. If you perform really well, you'll get a bonus. If you consistently perform high, you will get a promotion. So that's carrot and stick. That's really putting a fire under the tail. That's how I think of that. How do you motivate? You put a fire under the tail, as opposed to how do you inspire? Inspire is something completely different. You cannot inspire people with a carrot and stick. It just doesn't work. Instead, you have to help them to create a fire in the belly. So think about that difference for a moment. A fire under the tail versus a fire in the belly. People that are inspired have a fire in the belly, and people that are inspired perform much higher than people that aren't. So, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that. So why is all of this important? Well, this is a research study that was done by Bain. I'm not sure if you know Bain, but it's a wonderful organization that creates a lot of great research. This was actually performed pre-COVID, but I will tell you, my guess, and they're always refreshing this information. So my guess is that it's becoming even more important, what I'm getting ready to tell you. So there was a survey of 300 senior executives worldwide, and they asked these executives, what are the productivity levels? Let me rephrase that. What is productivity when someone's satisfied with their job? What is productivity when they are dissatisfied? Or I've screwed this all up. So basically, what is productivity at different levels? Do people perform higher or lower than they're dissatisfied, satisfied, engaged, and inspired? So it'll be clear on the next page. That was clear as mud, right? Okay, I'll fix that in just a moment. But also how to achieve each of these levels. So here's the definitions. And I think the first one is, pretty much all of us would agree with this. Achievement towards one goals is productivity. Some people might call that performance, but I'm calling it productivity. Satisfaction is about being content with your work. And again, nothing wrong with this, right? We want people to be content. Engagement are those that are willing to give discretionary effort. They're, in other words, they're willing to go above and beyond. But inspired people are driven by purpose and meaning. And so they have that alignment of their values. They feel like they are contributing, all of that. People that are inspired perform higher. So again, the question is, what is people's productivity at each of these three levels? All right. And I'm actually going to give you dissatisfied too. So to create just a benchmark, this is a low bar, but a benchmark for satisfied is that we want people to produce at 100%. If you come to work and you're satisfied, you're going to produce at 100%. That's great. So that was basically built just as a benchmark to compare the others to. So dissatisfied people, if you were able to interact with me, I would ask you, what do you think dissatisfied people would be? What is their productivity level? And this is not a trick question. It is lower. Dissatisfied people perform lower than satisfied people. And I always get anywhere from like 20% to 80%. It's actually 71. So on average, people that are dissatisfied produce at 29% lower than satisfied people. And so, there's a whole lot of research and information out there about dissatisfied employees. It's not just productivity that reduces. It's a whole lot of other things about building the culture or potentially even damaging the culture. Dissatisfied people damage cultures, no question. All right. So if dissatisfied people perform at 71%, satisfied are at 100%, engaged people. Now we know that that's higher because it's people who are willing to give discretionary effort. They will go above and beyond. And this is actually pretty impressive to me. Look at that, 44% higher. Just imagine if your team, everybody in your team was engaged, and maybe they are, I hope so, then they are performing much higher than just satisfied people. All right, so the last one is inspired. And inspired, again, is, are they working out, do they have a fire in the belly? Are they able to connect their work to purpose and meaning? Do they feel authentic about the work they're doing? So you're gonna be surprised by this. Drum roll, please. And I always get answers anywhere. Usually people say like 150, 175. Check this out. Look at that, 225%. That's crazy. I have been doing this type of work for a very long time. There is no other intervention that I know of that increases productivity that much. It's like if you had all satisfied people, this is basically doubling your work, your staff. Now, wouldn't that, and not only to mention that, when people are inspired, they don't get burned out as fast. I'm not going to say they don't get burned out, but they're so driven by this and they feel so aligned with it. They don't get burned out. They don't leave as quickly. If they have a job that makes them feel like they are aligned with purpose and meaning, you're going to have a much greater chance of them staying. They also like growing and they like taking on more. This is the secret. And the secret is helping people to feel inspired. And we do that through purpose and meaning. Okay. What is it? We have a midpoint.
So, Marsha,
Yes.
I appreciate you walking us through the various steps. Thank you for that. But my question to you is, it looks like you aren't saying that a leader has to add work to their schedules to create purpose. Is that right?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
that's a question I get a lot. And wouldn't it be cruel if we just ended this here and didn't tell people how to get to those different levels? We're not going to do that.
No.
So I'm going to show you what you have to do to get people to each of those levels. And what you'll see, to Dorothy's point, is that it's not additional work. It really isn't. It is tweaking the way people manage and lead. So
Wonderful. So please tell us.
there we go. So satisfied. So take a moment and read these. I mean, this is low. This is a low bar. We should be giving people a safe environment, tools, training, resources. Bureaucracy, that's a little tougher. Some organizations are challenged with a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and levels, but a manager and a leader can help people to maneuver through that. We've always thought of, we always say that managers should be paving the way for people to do their work, and that's what this means. And then, of course, valued and rewarded fairly. Fairly is a big word here. That's one of the potential things that can turn great people, to become dissatisfied very quickly. Mm-hmm. Is, do they feel that they're rewarded fairly? So, and if you think that people do not understand or know how other people around them are being rewarded, let me just tell you, they do. So word travels. It doesn't mean we should be completely transparent around that, but we should always Be looking at reward systems, and is it fair to all people? Are people fairly compensated? Okay. So Dorothy, this is not anything to add, right? That's just stuff that we should be doing.
Baseline. Okay.
Okay. So engaged people want to be part of a great team. Engaged people want to have autonomy. One of the biggest killers of a culture is micromanagement. And if you are micromanaging, one, you may not know it, but two, find a way to figure that out. Have a 360 done. Have someone come in and ask the people around you, the people on your team, do they feel like that you are do they feel like they are given autonomy, or do they feel like they are micromanaged? It's worth the exercise because, again, micromanagement has a terrible, terrible impact on the culture. Engaged people want to learn and grow constantly, and they want to feel like they're having an impact. They want to make a difference. So good for them, right? Again, this is nothing that you have to add to your plate. It's simply things that you have to make sure that people are getting. Now, part of a great team, you might have to add a little bit of work to that. That might be doing some teamwork. I'm not sure. It would depend on the team. But even if it is, it's minimal compared to the engagement that you'll create with your team. All right, so here's the big one. I feel like if there was a drum roll, I'd ask for the drum roll. How do you make people inspired? People need to feel emotionally connected to their leaders. They need to feel emotionally connected to the mission and the values of the organization. Let that sit there for a while. What do you think it means to be emotionally connected to leaders and emotionally connected to the work? I will bring you back to those 4 things I told you. It's about people feeling like they matter. What are the 4 again? I have to go back. I think I have it coming up, but it's the 4 levels of connection. They have to feel like they matter, they're involved, they're valued, their values are aligned. I mean, that is how you create this connection for people. It's all about connection, all about connection. Oh, here it is. I spoke too soon. Okay. So to get to that last level, to get to this, to help people feel emotionally connected to the leaders, emotionally connected to the mission and values of the organization, these work so well. Help people to understand that they matter. They matter, their work matters. They're important. The work is important. They are included, and their values are aligned with you as the leader, aligned with the organization, and aligned with the work. Now, if you show me somebody who has all 4 of these in one job, it's kind of a unicorn. You don't have to have all of these to create, you don't have to have all of these at one time to create inspiration. In fact, sometimes some of these will come and go, but the goal is to strive to make these true for the people on your team. Even if you could start with just matters, that's an easy one. That's really just telling people they matter and explaining to them how how their work matters, how it's connected to purpose and meaning and all that stuff. Start with one of these and just make sure that people know this. Now, most likely managers and leaders are already having conversations with each of the members on their team or staff meetings. So you're connecting with them. Add this piece. Add this piece. It's really like a sentence or 2. I promise you this will not take much time. This is pretty easy to do because you already have the forums in which to do it. All right, so I'm going to talk about each of these. So these are a couple of strategies that I came up with. And number one is how to help people understand that their work matters. You can pretty easily do that by having clear objectives, making sure that their objectives are really meeting and working toward the mission and goals of the organization. And then also just pointing out the importance of the work that they're responsible for. I mean, that's really important as well. And I'm sure all of you are sitting there thinking to yourself, I've got others. I could probably create 10 of these. And if I opened up the chat and you started giving me your recommendations, I could add 10 of these quickly. So I'm typing the ones out, or I made the ones that seemed most, I don't know, top of mind for me, but this list could go on and on. Let's go to the second one, important. So how do you make people know that their work is important? So you do this through development opportunities, special assignments, visibility, and other strategies. Just keep people informed of what's going on in the business. And actually that kind of overlaps with included too, keeping people informed. I think keeping people informed probably touches on every one of these. There's a lot of overlap with these. Okay, and then included. Again, I mentioned earlier in the DEI space, we've have a lot of research on this, and the whole phrase about this is, if you're going to ask someone to the dance, you got to ask. If you're going to ask someone to the party, you need to ask them to dance. And so, is everybody equally involved on this team? Does everybody feel included? Some strategies for that would be to involve them. There are important discussions that happen all the time. And sometimes a few team members are asked, sometimes one, sometimes all. But my point is try to include more people more often into these important discussions, because it makes them feel like they're part of the team, part of the inner circle. I used to show a video clip of this, and that was, everybody will relate to this, but the movie Meet the Parents, when De Niro does the whole, circle of trust thing. It's hilarious, but it's actually true. People need to feel like they are in the circle of trust. Include them in important decisions that you're making. Just find ways to show recognition for them, and really about show ways to show recognition of them as you include them into conversations. I think that was a little bit confusing, but again, these overlap. All right, and then the last one is help people to see how their values are aligned with their leaders, the organization, and the work. Because again, this leads to authenticity. Have you ever gone to work and felt like you couldn't be yourself? Well, unfortunately, a lot of us have, and it's not good. So, number one, create a psychologically safe culture. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is what allows us to have the conversation about our values and if they are aligned. If you have a team member who does not feel that their values are aligned, you want to be able to have a conversation about it, because you would be able to help tweak their job or help reframe it so that they can see. Because I will tell you, when I started with this organization many years ago, the one where I was not aligned with their goals, I had the conversation with my manager, and he was phenomenal in helping me to see that, my values are aligned with a lot of other things that are really, really important. And that was what it took. And he also showed the interest of asking me. He had a very psychologically safe culture, and I was able to ask these questions. And I believe he even approached me at one point and started the conversation. And then after having that conversation, I felt very safe. I felt like I could tell him anything, and I did. And he was wonderful at helping me to make sure that the work I was doing was aligned with my values. And it really was. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about how do you create that psychologically safe culture. This is a buzzword. A lot of us are hearing about it. There's a lot of ways to do this, but I'm going to share with you one way. And I've seen this over and over and over. And this, if there's really one concept I would love for you to take from this session, this is it. All right, so the leader, the manager, is on the left and the employee is on the right. So if this leader wants to create a psychologically safe culture, what we typically think of, this is what we typically think, is that they come together, they meet in the middle, but they still both have, let me go back for a second, I forgot to mention this part, each of them have their own agenda. They have their own goals, they have beliefs, assumptions, preference, all those things. And we feel that what happens is they need to come together and share that information with one another. And here's the problem with that. The woman, the manager, has positional power. And because she has positional power, it's going to totally dwarf his agenda, goals, beliefs, assumptions, all those things. So simply coming to the middle, meeting in the middle to have a conversation, it's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing, but it's not going to get you where you want. And so what needs to happen is that the manager, the leader, goes to the other person's side of the bridge. More importantly, that manager leaves behind, compartmentalizes their own agenda, goals, beliefs, assumptions, just compartmentalizes it, and leaves that behind so that she can listen deeply and ask questions and about her employees' agenda, goals, assumption, all that. So she can listen deeply and ask questions about that. And when she does, here's what happens. The employee says, my leader gets it. That's a great thing. It is a wonderful thing to work for someone who gets it. They get how tough the job is. They get the challenges behind it. They get the politics. They get all this stuff, which is wonderful. And when the manager demonstrates that she gets it, what happens is the employee then gives them permission to understand even more. So that now they're able to go to the deeper things, the things that are not spoken. She and he can talk about feelings, concerns, fears, hopes, dreams, aspirations, all of those. And when that happens, the employee says, my leader gets me. Now, when I go through this, I get chills every time I go through this. My leader gets it. My leader gets me. And we want both of those. This is what it takes to create a psychologically safe culture. All right. So one of the big solutions here is to shift to a coaching leadership style. I bet everybody here has heard about coaches. There's a lot of us out there. There are internal coaches. There are external coaches. And what they would say, if you want to manage people using a coaching style, this is what you need to do. Everybody read through this, but I'm gonna read it out loud. You need to give your team a safe space to think, reflect, and openly discuss issues or challenges they may be having. Now that's what we just mentioned. Safe space equals psychologically safe culture. The manager also needs to enable them to solve their issues instead of giving them the answers. Be available to help them to think about, reflect on how they overcame their challenges. But the goal is to give them the space and the ability to solve their own problems. Whoever solves a problem, whoever comes up with a solution is the one that owns it. And you really, really, really want them to own it. Then encourage them to think ahead so that they can solve future challenges that are even more complex without your help. So this coaching leadership style is the only style of leadership. That's probably overstated. Maybe a very powerful style in which you not only develop a person where they are, but it also develops them for future work that gets bigger, more ambiguous, more complex, more volatile. Yes. So a coaching style helps them to become more resilient. That's probably the best word to say, more resilient. All right. So this is just a very simple, what is coaching? What coaching means is you have an employee with a problem or challenge that are focused on how to solve it. Wonderful. We need to keep that. The manager, on the other hand, needs to focus on the person and how they solve the problem. But it's very easy to slip back into helping someone solve the problems. You don't want to solve the problems. You want to focus on the process and how the person solved the problem and give them help with that. So, moral of the story here is coach the person, not the problem. That is a coaching leadership management style. All right. There's there's lots of goals of coaching, but these are the two that really stand out. You want to create ownership and you want to create self-sustaining growth. So if I go back to that definition, the colorful one, this really is the outcome of that. You want employees to own their own development, to own their own problems, to own their own solutions. You also want them to continue that growth with or without you. You want to give them the skills that basically you work yourself out of a job as the person who develops them. All right. Now, the biggest thing that gets in our way as managers and leaders is that we want to solve problems. We like to do it. It makes us feel valued. It makes us feel like the hero. And And, those are okay. It's also very controlling. Giving advice is fun, right? But here's what happens. People feel micromanaged. The leader or the manager becomes the bottleneck. Whoever owns the issue owns the problem. And so, you totally take away the ownership. You also prevent growth from happening. So people that managers solve their problems, they don't grow. They don't grow. So we need to give this, and it's difficult, again, because we were hired to solve problems. We were hired to make things happen. And so if you don't allow your team to be part of that, guess what? They're never going to grow. And actually, guess what? You're probably not going to grow either. So having people to own their own issues, their own challenges, and then help them to have self-sustaining development, it's awesome. Wonderful. That's when great things happen. All right. So let me just tell you how some of these show up. So a coaching approach is great. It's about encouraging self-reflection through inquiry. It's about asking open-ended questions, encouraging reflection and contemplation. Sorry, I'm a little tired this morning. It's about asking questions that expands options and alternatives. It's about asking questions that promotes a greater self-awareness. Monitoring approach. This is called a monitoring approach. So this is like the opposite of coaching is, and this is stuff sneaks in. Even if you are coaching, these are some very subtle ways that we stop coaching and we start telling, expressing your opinion. So we as leaders and managers think I'm just giving them my opinion. But again, I'll bring this word up. You have positional power. When you have positional power and you express your opinion, that's basically gospel. That's basically what they are hearing is this is what we need to do. Same thing with sharing your preferred approach. It's very easy to say, I've solved this problem before, and I'll tell you the way that worked the best for me was this. Guess what? That's now the solution. Guess what? You own it, not the person. They didn't solve it. Giving advice on how you would do it or asking leading questions. Just because there's a question mark at the end of your sentence does not mean it's a question. So people hear questions in the form of statements when you have that positional power. All right, so this is where you have the worksheet. And I asked the questions at the top about how does their work matter? How is their work important? How are they included? And are their values aligned? And so I added, 3 potential people. We're not going to go through this today. If we did, we'd provide a case study and we'd talk through how to make those 4 happen. But my hope is if you're managing or leading people, I want you to put someone's name in each of that person 1, person 2, person 3, and walk through this exercise to identify how can you move the needle on those 4 things. And if you do, even if you move the needle a tiny bit, that creates more inspiration. It really does, and by the way, creates more productivity. All right. Final question. I think it's my question, but I can't remember, Dorothy.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
I will do that for you. So
Thank
your
you.
question to me is, if I want to learn more about all of these things that you shared with us, what do I do? And Marsha, I am glad you asked, because as a Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness, we are able to translate the research that has been done into leadership coursework for managers, for executives, for alumni, for our teams, for organizations to further their leadership development goals. We have individual, group, and executive coaching certification program, which is under the umbrella of leadership coaching certificate programs. It is completely online and it is taught by Dr. Marsha Ken. It's about 8 to 10 month period. And I promise you, you won't regret that. We also have leadership accelerator programs. There's one that is in person and we have one that is online. We also have custom programs, whether it's in person or online, where we are able to work with your organizations to create the kind of experience that you'd like. If you have questions, take a picture of the slide, send us an email in the mgt-chloe@buffalo.edu, and someone will reach back to you.
If anyone wants to know about becoming a leadership coach, feel free to reach out to me. Whether you want to be a coach internally as a manager or leader, or you want to become a leadership coach, executive coach as your own, as a contractor, as running your own business. It's a wonderful way to move into retirement. We've got a lot of students who have done that. Please reach out to me. I would definitely embrace that.
Wonderful. Marsha, thank you. And now I'm going to turn it back to our audience to ask questions. And so we'll get to the next slide.
Fantastic. Dr. Dorothy Siaw-Asamoah, Dr. Marsha King, we are so grateful for you spending time with us today. The line, coach the person, not the problem, really stuck with me, and I do appreciate that. It's so great learning from the both of you. I pick up something every single time. We are going to go to some questions that have come through, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up and get us started. So the first question that was submitted from our audience: how can leaders from underrepresented communities align their purpose with organizational goals to achieve maximum outcomes and drive lasting success?
Dorothy, you want to take a stab at that one?
I will try, and then you will wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is that you are a whole person, first and foremost, and that will never change. You have your own set of talents and strengths. Tap into it, lean into it. And whilst you continue to figure out the organizational values that will be aligned with yours, remember the story Marsha said. She had the opportunity to speak with a mentor, a supervisor, her boss, who provided her the psychological space in order to discuss it. And if you do so, you will be surprised. There might be things that are more aligned than you realize. But if you keep it all both between your ears and you only focus on that which is not in alignment, it makes it even bigger. And so I remember something someone said: between where you are and where you want to be, there is a space. And what you do in that space determines how successful you will become when you get to where you want to be.
Right. You know, the only thing I would add to that is first of all, I would not even hint that I might understand anything other than the white woman experience, right? This has been my experience. I think admitting that is the first step. And I've admitted it for sure. One of the things that Dorothy and I are working toward is creating more coaches of color. So we lead this coaching certification program, and we have a strong emphasis on creating coaches of color. We don't have enough. I get asked to coach people of color all the time, and I already know I'm not the best coach. Now, I try, and they seem happy, especially if I admit that I have nothing but the white woman experience. But we see a big gap in coaches of color, and we are working very hard to close that gap. 25% of our graduates are coaches of color. We feel very good about that.
Excellent. Thank you both for your responses there. I'm going to go back to the questions here that are coming through. The next question here that was submitted: how do you decide if you are ready to move into a leadership role?
It's a great question, because I'm wondering, I don't know if you ever know you're ready. So a lot of times it's basically taking a leap of faith and committing to learning as you go. So no one has all the answers, and no one's a natural. There's this discussion out there of, are you born a leader or do you become a leader? You might be born with some traits that help you in that, but leaders are made. They are absolutely made. So if you are given an opportunity, a leadership opportunity, take it. Take it and know that you're going to have to work really hard and learn a lot to become good. So when do you know you're ready? I don't know if you do. Do you think any differently, Dorothy?
I would say yes to what you said and just add this bit. Until you try, you will not know.
Right.
And if you have to jump in and do your best, just recognize that you are not perfect and just keep going. And when you can surround yourself with those who will speak into your life to build you up, You just put one foot in front of the other, and before you know, you're making progress. Do not allow perfection to stand in the way of progress.
Oh, I love that. Perfection is our enemy.
Mhm. Definitely is. And this next question, and I appreciate you both so candidly answering those questions we have from our audience. This next question here, do you believe that the same principles and strategies for inspiring relates to working with volunteers as compared to paid staff?
I do. Volunteers usually volunteer because they already have the fire in the belly. So they've managed to find a way to create it themselves. And most of us volunteer in areas where we have a strong connection to either the leader of the organization or to their values and their goals. So do they apply it? Yeah, and as volunteers, yep. No question.
And I would just add to what Dr. King said, that if you are wondering about the second question that was asked, are you ready to lead? Volunteer when you're not being paid for it. And that will give you another confirmation to say, I'm ready to move on.
Great point.
Excellent. This next question here for you both, and it goes back to your slide that showed the bar graph slides. So maybe Marsha, can you just describe a little bit how productivity is measured in reference to the bar graph slides?
Yeah. So the research study contacted 300 senior executives globally. Unfortunately, they don't have it broken down by industry. I wish they did. So this is global and across industries. And they were basically given the benchmark. Let's just say that satisfied people in your organization perform at 100%. Then they asked them, okay, the other three, dissatisfied, engaged, and inspired. So it's a qualitative research study that was included senior executives globally. So that's about as much as I can give. And they're given the description that what each of those means. So productivity means achievement towards one goals. And then you'll have this in the presentation when you get it, but you'll get definitions for those other, for dissatisfied, satisfied, engaged, and inspired. So yeah, you'll see it. But it was a qualitative research study with 300 executives globally, in their opinion.
Great, thank you for that. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. We're going to finish with one final question and then save some time for closing remarks as well. But this next question, one of our audience members just mentioned, their current challenge is working with more early career staff members. Do you have any thoughts or advice on where to start with a colleague who is still finding their professional space and they can't voice a clear focus for themselves? Or maybe their preferred focus isn't in alignment with the trajectory of the position or role that they're expected to fill.
Can I answer that first, Dorothy?
Please, Dr. King, go ahead.
Okay, so number one, create that psychologically safe culture so that they can have conversations about this with you. That's the number one thing. Help them to not feel afraid to ask questions about this, because chances are they don't know what they want to do. And ask them questions about what would help you to feel like your work matters. What would help you to feel like you are included? Ask them as their manager or leader in a psychologically safe culture. And I don't know if the right solution will come out, but it sure will get you a lot closer.
I will add my simple point to this. Ask them if they know what they're good at. What are their strengths? What are the gifts that they have in their hands? And it doesn't mean that it reflects on which job they do, but how they will do their work. And so giving them that opportunity to complete a tool. Start with Strengths Finders. It's the simplest and the easiest one. And have a certified coach. Somebody who is trained to facilitate these conversations, to work through with them. And you will be surprised at the kind of person that the same human being, but they will learn to then embrace their best selves. When it's good for that individual, they know you invested in them, they will invest in the organization and they invest in our community, and the rest we'll say is history.
Fantastic. Thank you both. I just can't thank you enough on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement, the UB School of Management. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your knowledge with us. We are so grateful, Dr. Marsha King and Dr. Dorothy Siaw-Asamoah. I do want to just remind everyone we've recorded today's session. There is a document in the resource section. Take a look at that. Make sure you download it before we finish today. But I do also want to turn it back over to Dorothy and Marsha for any closing remarks.
Marsha, you go first.
Absolutely. So first of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm always humbled by being asked to do these. I'm very blessed to be able to have Dorothy as my partner. So thank you for that as well. I would encourage all of you to go back through these slides and identify, can you create some of these for the people on your team? Or can you influence your manager to create more of this for the people that you work with? Yeah, and you know what? I already think you're great. So just continue being great. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Dorothy.
I echo everything Dr. Ken you just mentioned, and all I will add is that thank you for making us part of your day. We hope you found value in this, and our request to you is put one thing to practice, and we hope to see you back next time. If you have questions about the offerings from the center, please reach out to us. We would love to have you in any of our sessions and get to know you more. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Outstanding. Thank you both. Take care, stay well, enjoy the rest of your day, and go Bulls. Thank you all.
Bye.